Right, let's now cross live to the India Today Conclave once again.
To the world, what's the threat to India? Professor Bernard Haeckel, he is the foremost authority on the ISIS. Governments consult him. He's on the dais with me, as is Amrullah Saleh. Is this ISIS a distant threat, or is that danger closer home? Amrullah Saleh led the intelligence operations against the Taliban. He set up Afghanistan's intelligence agencies and was appointed the director of Afghanistan's intelligence agencies by the Karzai government. He joins us on the dais, and I want to start by asking Nicholas, the world's worst nightmare. Nicholas, you lived through that nightmare for 10 months. How did that nightmare begin?
How did that begin? It began just with an abduction. But I was not the only one abducted. Actually, there has been an abduction that was probably, well, that was for sure much, much worse than mine. It was the abduction of a peaceful and very democratic revolution. Today, exactly today, we are celebrating, well, not much to celebrate, but today we are marking the 4th anniversary of the Syrian revolution. That was a tremendous hope for a population that for the very first time of its history had a chance to take control of its destiny. And this revolution has been hijacked. It has been first repressed extremely brutally by the Syrian regime, and it has been later on hijacked and abducted by these people, by the very same people who abducted me. And you were talking about horror, about nightmare. My nightmare, my friend, was nothing compared to the one of the Syrian people.
I can understand that. Now, you shared a prison cell with Foley, with Sotlov, with Heining. These were people you were in the same prison cell with. Describe to us what was life in prison like. They were taken out, they were executed, you survived. How did they know who to kill? Did you know who would be killed and who would survive?
Well, we knew very little because the captors would let you know very little. So I shared my cell with people who were released and people who got killed. This is life.
What was prison like? What was your conversation with fellow inmates, with the captors?
Well, it was especially boring. It was a lot about how to kill time. And, you know, Syria is full of weapons of mass destruction, but nothing that is efficient enough to kill something as terrible as time.
Okay. I was reading one of your experiences, Nicholas, where you've written, you were the hedgehog. Describe what animal are you closest to?
I wrote actually 2 books. This is a children's book that I wrote during my time in captivity, and it was the pictures are from a fellow cellmate who was taken with me and released with me, and this is the story of a hedgehog. But this is not especially the book I'm here for. My main book is Jihad Academy. And this is a book that explains to the public, unfortunately so far it's only in French, it was just released in France. And this book is about how to understand the conflict in Syria and how to understand the situation in Iraq, because everything we know, the whole ISIS has a background. It does not come out of nothing. It comes from, well, history. It's, in a way, a revenge of history. It's a revenge on the American invasion of Iraq in 2003, and it's a revenge on the passivity of the world after the beginning of the Syrian revolution 4 years ago, day by day, now.
Now, this is brutality for some reason which most of the world doesn't even understand. These are people who would keep high-definition cameras. They'd attach those high-definition cameras to the barrel of their gun and then go around shooting people so that they can capture their kill and then put it on YouTube to attract more people. So this is brutality. You just don't understand. Why do they do that? Did you interact with them? Did you get to hear something?
They do that exactly to shock you. They want to provoke us. They want to shock us. And they are even looking for the best way possible to shock us. Oh, let's enslave Yazidis. Oh, it's cool. It makes the headline in the West. So let's enslave even more Yazidis. Oh, the destruction of antiquities. Oh, it works. It makes the headline. Have you seen that? The headlines. Yes, let's destroy more antiquities. Provocation is their message. It helps because it pushes us to overreact. And overreaction is bad because it makes us react with some kind of brutality and lack of distance, while efficient fight of terrorism requires subtlety and morale.
Okay.
So this violence and this provocation is also extremely efficient, of course, to attract lost kids. Well, potential jihadis.
Theo, you were a prisoner for 22 months of the Al-Qaeda, and you literally delivered yourself to your captors. Tell us your story.
Right. Well, I think I made a mistake. What can I tell you? I met some nice young men in Antakya, Turkey, in October of 2012, and in fact, I was very reluctant to trust them. But I felt that I needed to trust somebody if I wanted to go down into Syria, and I trusted the wrong people. What can I tell you? I just went with the wrong people. As soon as we entered into Syria, we slept in a house the first night, and the next day they took me to an abandoned house outside of the city of Aleppo, and filming everything they did. They beat me and took me into custody, and they said, "You are our prisoner now. We are from the Al-Qaeda organization. Give us your money. Shut up."
So this wasn't just a robbery. This wasn't youngsters robbing you. They took your money, they beat you up, but they had a bigger design.
I'm not sure. They told me right away. They said, "Listen, either we kill you in a week or you come up with a quarter kilo of gold, which is the amount that the Quran entitles us to." I said, "Okay, I'll give you the quarter kilo of gold. Kindly don't kill me." And they said, they put me in handcuffs, and then we went to another house, and we slept that night. And in the morning, I ran away from them, and I ended up at the Free Syrian Army, who are supposedly our friends and nice people. I said, "Help me, help me, help me. I've been kidnapped by terrorists." And they said, "Sit down, no problem, we'll solve the issue." And they gave me back to my kidnappers. Too bad.
You escaped too, Nicholas. Just the very third night, the third day of your capture, you escaped, but you were caught. Did their attitude change? Describe to us how you managed to escape and how were you caught?
Well, I just found a way to break the bars of my cell. And so on my third day, I broke them, of captivity, I broke them, and I jumped out of the cell. I ran in the desert for, a few hours, and early in the morning, I found people. They were mujahideen, they were in pajamas, so I didn't know that they were mujahideen because, there is no difference between civilian and mujahideen when you see just men in pajamas. And they caught me back, and they took me back to the very same cell.
Now, both of you, you weren't kept in the same prison throughout. In your 22 months, you changed, I think, 13 prisons. In your 10 months, you changed a large number of prisons. 13 again. So, were they on the run? Were they running around a lot of running from authorities, or they were the authorities?
In my case, my group was at war with his group. So these two were fighting each other, although they have the exact same religion, and in fact, many of the same people. You know, they switched back and forth. But one day, the commander of his group said that the commander of my group was bad, so they had a fight. All the soldiers began killing each other, and his group beat my group, and we had to flee from that group into the desert, which we did. And but at a certain point, yes, he and I were in the exact same prison, in the exact same cell. However, I was there a year before he was there.
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, we shared the same cell, but the prison changed hands. Well, the control of this prison changed from a group to another, but it remained a prison, and we were in the same cell a year apart.
Were you beaten up in prison? Did they torture you in prison, or people around you, specifically the foreigners? Were foreigners, Western journalists, aid workers, were they kept separately and other prisoners kept separately?
I'll be happy to answer that question. I mean, in my case, yes, the foreigners were kept separately for a period, although later they moved us in with members of the regime, the Syrian National Army, and also with people they accused of being shabiha, who are thugs, kind of militia activists who work on behalf of the regime, and also fighters from his group. So, I mean, I was in prison with a diverse cast of characters. And as for the torture, it's very systematic in these prisons. Every prison has a room in which they carry this thing out, these torture sessions. And I was there for 2 years almost. I mean, not every night, but let's say every other night or every third night, they would have somebody in the torture room. That's going on every day. I mean, it's what they do when they don't have anything else to do. And there's really it's very systematic kind of approach to torture that they have at the moment.
So they torture when they have nothing else to do.
I mean, yes, they do. They don't do it for intelligence, which as some governments might, in order to extract information from the victim. I know that personally. I mean, they pretended a little bit, but I know that was not their real intention. I mean, they were doing this in order to exhibit their superiority and to render the torture victim terrified and helpless. And I mean, they much later on, they made a kind of a little show of trying to extract information, but basically, they wanted to inflict pain.
For the sake of inflicting pain, or because you follow a different religion?
I mean, you'd have to ask them what the deep motive is. I mean, to be honest, I think that they will tell you that I mean, I don't want to depress everyone with their horrible stories of torture, but they believe that it brings you closer to God when they make people who are harmful to Islam, as they believe me to be, suffer. So they competed with one another in order to have the opportunity to make me suffer. It brought them closer to God.
They would just come and kick you, break a rib or two?
Sometimes, yes. And other times they're more systematic kinds of torture.
Like?
Oh, they have to elaborate. They have chains, they have electricity, and they have sticks, they have cables, they have hanging from the pipes by your wrists. Believe me, it's not pretty.
And the jihadis are performing the very same kind of torture that the Syrian regime does.
That's true.
They learned the torture from their jail, and they are doing the very same. So I'm making no difference between all the torture. And as far as I know, there is not a single detention facility across Syria without at least one torture room.
Okay. Professor Haeckel, what's the draw of the Islamic State? Why would people, for example, Jihadi John, why would he leave the UK and become an ISIS terrorist?
I mean, there are different motivations for different people. I think that many of the Western converts to Islam, or people who are Muslims who are joining because there's this utopian vision that the Islamic State presents. They've recreated a state called the Caliphate. It's where real, in quotes, Islam is being practiced. It's authentic. It's adventurous. you're performing God's will. So I think a number of people are attracted to that idea. For the Iraqis and for the Syrians who join, it's for more complicated reasons, I think. There it has to do with what was mentioned earlier. That